Hey YouTube, let's talk about crime and punishment in the country today. And to do that, let's talk about the case of Shaneen Allen. So a little bit of background on her. Shaneen Allen is, I believe, 28 years old. She is a single mother. She has two young boys. I believe they are under the age of 6. They might be a little older, but not much. She has a concealed carry permit from her home state, which is Pennsylvania, which means that she's not a felon, and she has no criminal history. She recently took a trip into New Jersey. She was pulled over for a traffic violation and informed the officer, "I've got an out-of-state permit and I also have a firearm with me." At that point, she was arrested and I believe taken into custody. Before we can kind of go a little bit further, we need to talk about how New Jersey laws work, especially as pertains to firearms, concealed carry, things like that. New Jersey does not have reciprocity with Pennsylvania, which means that they don't recognize that permit. So if they did, it would be okay for her to come in as long as she followed their gun laws there. So when she informed the officer that she had a firearm and she had an out-of-state permit, she was in violation of New Jersey state law. And if she is found guilty of bringing that firearm in there, she can face up to 3 years minimum. Now they could charge her for more, but 3 years minimum. She also was charged with having or being in possession of restricted ammunition. She had some hollow point ammunition, which in New Jersey you cannot have in your firearm unless you are at a gun range, from my understanding. Also, a little bit of background about how things can be charged, or options that the state would have to charge her. They could send her through what's called a diversionary program because she fits the profile, so she would qualify for that. And what a diversionary program usually means is that they would say, okay, well, we understand you broke this law, but the spirit of the law really wasn't broken because this law is set up to go after certain criminal element, and you're not really part of that criminal element. You just made an honest mistake. Now, to be sure, she did break the law there, and she does deserve to maybe pay for that mistake. And again, this is what the diversionary program would be. So she would maybe pay a fine, maybe she has to do a public service announcement, take a gun safety class, whatever they're going to do. Basically what it is it keeps her pretty much out of the court system from going to trial and things like that. And it, more importantly, keeps someone out of prison who they would feel doesn't need to be in prison. The way you get into this diversionary program, instead of going through the regular trial system and being charged with these things, is it has to come from the prosecutor's office. The prosecutor's office in this case has decided to make an example and to use the destruction of her life and her family in order to have political gain, to make political points for themselves. Now, they did offer her a plea agreement, but it was something like, you're going to serve 3 years in prison and this other stuff. When she refused to do that, basically what they're doing is they're going to throw the book at her. So she's looking at a minimum of 4 years in prison. If she is convicted and if she gets out, she will be a felon. She will no longer be able to own or possess firearms in her home state. She will also lose several of her civil rights. So in talking about crime and punishment, we have to say, does the punishment in this case fit with what her crime was? You also have to remember that in this case there was no victim. Nobody was threatened with the firearm. It was not discharged. There was no destruction of property. The state of New Jersey is the victim in this case. So this woman faces potential destruction of her life, and it's already started because I believe she has been terminated from her job. The court costs of this are very, very expensive. So even if she's not convicted, she's still going to have a lot of legal bills. So what we're seeing here, again, is sort of the overreach of the government. Now, in theory, ignorance of the law, you've all heard the expression, ignorance of the law is no excuse. In theory, in New Jersey, ignorance of the law may be an excuse. It may be a defense for her. If we go back and look at the Constitution, if we look at the 8th Amendment, I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but this is more kind of an informative thing, get you guys to think, maybe get you guys to write into the prosecutor's office there. Anyway, the 8th Amendment to the Constitution says, and this will be a little bit of a paraphrase, that we're not to be subject to excessive bail, excessive fines, and we're also not to be subject to cruel and unusual punishment. And if you look at what's going on here, you see that the punishment doesn't fit the crime. And in fact, it kind of meets the definition of the 8th Amendment, that this would be, by anybody's standard, anybody who's a reasoned thinking person, that this would be cruel and unusual punishment. Her life will be destroyed by this. And they're not making society better. They're not making anybody safer. All they're doing is making things worse. So, anyway, just wanted to make you guys aware of that. Let me know what you think. I'd like to hear some video responses if you guys could take the time to do it. Or just comments. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys next time.